Hi, this is Barb Crowley with Metaphysics, A View Through the Veil. And we're on my YouTube channel, A View Through the Veil, talking to Robert Althuis, who has just finished his book, and it's being released this week of September 12th, 2023, and his book on love and truth. If you feel like you're stepping into the middle of the conversation with this show now, you actually are. The first half of our interview was on voiceamerica.com empowerment channel radio show. And we ran out of time with still so much to say, so we decided to continue the conversation and bring it over to my YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy it. But how can we get there? I mean, we are such as humans, we are complicated.
Very easy.
I mean, if we didn't have a good night's sleep the night before, we can be a bitch, you know?
Yeah, but of course, you know, we all got our rough edges. We're all flawed. I'm still flawed. I still make mistakes. I still sometimes use words I probably shouldn't, and you know, but here's the thing. I think once you fundamentally connect with this, not this idea, but this knowing that you recognize, like, I am actually divinity expressed into form. And this means if I'm this, everybody else is too. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now everything is sacred. Well, that's a big start, right? Because if everything is sacred, how would you treat something that's sacred? So that person you might have mean thoughts about, you can now switch it and say, okay, they're not showing up in the most beautiful way, but they're still sacred, because I know inside them, they don't realize it, but they are divine too. They just haven't realized it. They haven't seen it. And so you have this picture of Michelangelo on the Sixtine Chapel. You know, it's very famous with the two fingers that almost connect. It's God in a bubble, and they say it's Adam on the other side. That's actually not Adam. That is actually Lucifer, but not Lucifer in the way that the church has taken that story online. Lucifer was a prince. He was actually a grand regent prince, almost like a Jesus. And he lost his connection with God, with divinity, and then he ventured off into darkness. Now, what that picture is showing, if you reconnect that little finger of divinity, that's a reconnection in your heart, the realization like, hey, I'm actually divine. Everything is divine. Everything is sacred. Now, when you reconnect that, your life will change in radical ways, because you will never look at the world the same way. You will never be able to look at any war and say that's justifiable. You will never be able to look at any violence, hate, any of those things, not in yourself, but let alone in the world. It just makes no sense anymore. You look at the
It doesn't make sense, and it's hard to look at. It's hard to.
Yeah, and that's why we look away.
Yeah. But let me ask you, before you said about free will, we all have free will. But when you look back to what happened in your life, when you crashed, what I call the great crash, that wasn't really free will there. You wouldn't have chosen it.
No, let me caveat that. So we do have all free will. But at low levels of consciousness, you are really akin to sleepwalking. You are in a trance, because it's really your subconscious programming that is informing your ego, and that's what you're expressing into the world. At those levels of consciousness, your free will is next to nothing, because you don't have the consciousness to make a decision. You're just running the programming that's the world told you to be a certain way and think a certain way, and you've taken it all for truth, and you're just expressing that into the world, never giving it a second thought. You're sleepwalking, literally. This is why we call it awakening. Because what are you awakening to? You're awakening to a higher self that previously was hidden from view.
Yeah.
And now that higher self, call it your soul, has a higher knowing. And now that higher knowing is starting to be accessible to you. This is the intelligence of the heart, because it whispers to us. It whispers to us through feelings, sensing, intuiting, and direct knowing. And we do, even when we sleepwalk, we might have a precognition. Well, that's actually your soul giving you a precognition, because your rational mind didn't come up with that, right? So that apparatus is all there. But it's your job to go activate that part of you. And that comes through this connection, this realization, this internalization. Like, hey, I'm actually much bigger than this little ego I got in my mind. I'm actually not physically my body. I have a body. I have a mind. I am that which is aware of the thinking. So now when I'm aware of the thinking, I can see my own beliefs. Because there's certain ways I think about life, and that's how I walk through life. Now, this is, for instance, why poverty consciousness is very, very hard to solve in the way we do it in the material world. Because if you're, let's not project it in the US. Let's say, you're a poor little kid and you're born in the barrios in Rio de Janeiro. Atrocious circumstances. At 3-4 years old, you become an orphan. You just have to fend for yourself. There's violence everywhere. There's killings. Some of these kids get kidnapped. They have to steal. To feed themselves. Well, imagine that is, to you, that's what the world is like. You don't know anything else. Now, you think that person, they can still evolve beyond that, but that person is going to express those beliefs into the world. So guess what? To them, the world is unfair. For people like that, this is all they can do. There's no way out. Everybody is oppressing me. And actually, in reality, in terms of level of consciousness, is not true. Now, how do we know that's not true? Well, you can take examples, because we have plenty of examples of people that escaped their circumstances they were born into. Now, those people awoke something and they rose above their circumstances and were able to basically airlift themselves out of it, because they, in some way, created a belief system that they could.
Yeah.
Because anytime you don't believe you can do something, you can't. Like Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. If you don't believe
But there
you
are
can,
times where it's just luck. Let's say an American's walking through a barrio, sees a 4-year-old on their own and decides to take them home. That
well,
child didn't change its thought pattern. It just, this happened, and the world changed around him. So it wasn't his at all. It was an outside. In reality, it's the same outside that crashed your life. That.
No, I created every single part of it. Because the moment you say it was anything outside of you, you abdicated all your power. So even when you're not consciously aware how or why that was created or brought into your life, you can still own it. So
That is your soul creating that circumstance.
Because that as tragic as it is, that young little boy that has that experience, that was in his lesson plan. Because everything is always in perfect order, and there's an intelligence to design a life. And so even tragic things like people dying in wars, innocent people dying, being robbed, all those things, like we can see that as that happened to me, or we can see it that happened for me. Now that doesn't make it that it's good. I'm not justifying it. I'm not saying any of that stuff, because the offenders are responsible for their karmic debt. So, we had this movie, Sound of Freedom, right? And,
I want to say that again. You kind of,
there's this movie recently that came out, The Sound of Freedom, which is about human trafficking, especially kid trafficking. And, it's shown there that, demand, it creates supply, right? And so when you think about human trafficking, kid trafficking, well, why does that exist? Well, because there's demand for it. And so really where the causes of that is in the demand. It's not in the supply. Because if nobody wanted young little kids and these perverts didn't, abuse these kids, there wouldn't be any supply. So
Right.
think about cocaine, right? You got all these
I
hot
was thinking
shots.
fentanyl. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but for instance, I was in New York in business school, and this was in whatever, in 2000. And we were partying at night, and of course, I
Mhm.
was in New York, and I would snort a line here or there. Now, I wasn't aware at that moment, just I didn't think much about it.
Yeah.
But when you snort a line in New York, you have the blood in the street in Mexico's in your nose.
Mm.
Because that wouldn't exist unless you as the demand create
Right.
that.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. As long as you're unconscious, you're actually innocent. But the moment it becomes conscious, the moment you know that, now you're responsible. And so
Are
for
you
me,
ever unconscious on a higher level, though? You
no,
may
not on a higher
mentally
level,
be
but
unconscious, but
yeah,
you
but
know.
I'm talking about, so um, you know, I'm now much more conscious about a lot more things. So I have a lot more responsibility today than I did 10 or 15 or 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Think
Yeah.
about a toddler having a tantrum. That toddler is innocent, right? They don't know they're doing it. It's just like, maybe it was a sugar spike or maybe whatever. Now,
Right.
that same toddler at 15 years old and they throw the same tantrum, you're like, that's not innocence anymore. You know better than that. So now
Yeah.
you're responsible. And
Hmm.
so everything, when we rise in consciousness, we think about all these lofty things and, we're going to be like floating around in water and stuff. No, you're going to be more responsible, more accountable because you know more, you know better.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. I had someone a few months ago that I had a agreement with. They're going to do some services for me, and they didn't perform. And so yeah, I
Mhm.
call them and I say, hey, this you haven't performed, and so I want a refund or I want and the first reaction of this person is basically go f yourself.
Yeah.
Now I still have that human in me that would react and say,
Hmm.
well, nobody tells me to go F myself. I'm in my right. I'll sue you, I'll whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I
The
still
human.
got
Yeah.
that. And you should have told that to me 10 years ago. I
Hmm.
would have made it, I would have made it a point to destroy you because nobody talks to me like that. Right. You get that kind of stuff. That's ego.
Right. Right.
But now I know, okay, this person doesn't quite see it. What would love do? Well, love would actually call back and say, listen, where is this coming from? What is the problem for you? And I had a
Hmm.
conversation with this person. And you know what the problem was? He didn't have the money for the refund.
Mm.
It wasn't that he wasn't willing to do it. It wasn't that he wasn't seeing that he should refund me. He
Right.
didn't have it. And so he responded from fear, like, go fuck yourself, And then
Right. Right.
I told this person, I
But
said, like,
but here's the thing. Why did he not perform then? Was he not capable?
well,
Why
he
did
had
he
things show up in his
withhold the
life. He
work?
took on too much business. It's kind of
Okay.
irrelevant, right? And
Yeah.
so then I got in a conversation with him and I said, okay, how can we solve this? Right? Because it would be much better if we solved it rather than fight
Mhm.
over it or sue you
Right.
or whatever, right?
Right.
And then we worked out an agreement and some kind of thing. Now, if I would have gone into my ego, we would have had World War III. Now, this is
Hmm.
what you see everywhere in the world. I'll sue
Yeah.
you. I'll do this. I mean,
Right.
people think they're so evolved and they get caught off on the highway and they're livid for 2 hours.
Hmm. Yeah.
You see the stupidity of that? Because that person doesn't even know you're angry. And you're
Yeah.
spewing and doing, and then you take that into the office and you're being an asshole or a bitch to people in your office, and you carry it into the telephone conversation, and you're trying to sell something that
Right.
you really
It
like,
spews everywhere. Yeah, it spews
you're gruff and
everywhere.
all that, and now you're actually hurting yourself.
Uh-huh.
Because now you're your wife or your husband calls, and you're being mean to them, and then you hurt them because you got caught off in traffic. That's your
Mm.
ego, right? And
Right.
you can also just like, no one died. I guess they were in a hurry. Who knows? And guess what? Maybe in that car there was some guy with his pregnant wife trying to rush to the hospital. Now how that this
I
situation?
actually had a road, not a road rage, but where
Right,
everybody in the car, and there had to be six people, turned and gave me the finger. And the weird thing is, I had no idea why. No idea. Obviously,
right,
I did something,
right.
but I
Yeah.
had no idea what it was I did, or what it was about. But
So
that they went
yeah.
on with that anger, and I had no
And
clue.
so we become responsible and accountable for all our actions. Right.
Mm.
The higher, if you want to ascend, if you want to rise in consciousness, it's about really owning your power, because we all have immutable power, because everything we say, do, and act just projects into the world. And
Mhm.
in fact, and the whole world, all of creation is a co-created reality. And every single moment of every single breath we take, we are adding to that mosaic. And every
It is
frequency,
very hard to be aware of every breath you take.
I'm
As a
not asking you
human,
to be
we
aware of
we
every breath you
react,
take.
so
I'm
much.
just saying, the more we can be aware that every frequency lives forever. If you go far enough in the
Mhm.
universe, you can basically catch up with the I Love Lucy show transmissions, because that's a frequency too. That lives somewhere,
Right.
I mean, a
Out
hundred
there.
light years from here, right?
Hmm.
So you got to imagine that everything you do matters. Everything is a manifestation. You're manifesting 24/7, 365. Where your consciousness is, where your belief systems are, what you believe is being presented to you as a mirror in your outside world.
So it
Now, the
comes
more,
down to that second before response. It really comes down to that because our
well,
automatic response of anger or
all
of
right,
upset or of hurt or whatever, that's such a human thing. And we
of
are in a
course,
human body.
yeah,
And
yeah, but
I
we
tend
can
to think emotion is in the body.
no, well,
And
it's emotion is its own energy field, because we have a physical
right.
form, which is our body, right? And then we have an
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
plane, a mental plane, and a spiritual plane. But we can cultivate higher levels of awareness. So when angry comes up, and actually our language is very poor in this regard, because we say, I am angry. That's
Mhm.
actually not true. I'm experiencing anger. Because I am angry is I am the anger. But the anger
Mm,
is actually passing through us. Because
I see.
right after we're angry, now our mother calls us and says, I know you've been having a hard time. I bought you a car. Now we're like, oh, I love life. I'm so happy. I got like a break or whatever. So now
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
now joy is running through me.
Hmm.
Emotions are flow. We are not that. The emotions are running through us. And what do the emotions do? They teach us. And so when the emotion is bad, we can look at it and say, why am I feeling this? What in my outside world or in my inside thoughts? Because if I think poorly about myself, I think, if I wake up in the morning and tell myself, oh, God, you're so ugly and you got a pimple there and you're a rotten human being and you're such a lousy, and you're such an underperformer. And you say that love enough, you're going to feel depressed,
Right. Is
right?
emotion and ego the same thing or not?
No, so ego is a psychological construct of our mind. It's a
Mhm.
personality created by our mind. Our minds are thoughts, and the way it works is basically our ego through the subconscious has a belief system that it cultivated, it built over life. it's understanding of life. And then it looks at the world and it kind of verifies that with my understanding of life. So when you and I have the exact same, we're in the exact same situation, it will mean something different to me than for you, because you have had a different life than me.
Yeah.
So
And a different
maybe
personality.
maybe it affects you greatly and I don't even notice. Right? And so this is our belief system. Now, our prevailing belief system is what our opinions, our views about life, how the world works, how, what is available to me. That's a big belief system about life. Like when we say that's not possible for people like me, well, you just put a glass ceiling on your life. Because you basically told the universe, like, that is not available to me. And the universe will show you that in all kinds of ways. Now, this belief system produces our thoughts, about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. When those thoughts are positive, encouraging, empowering, they stimulate us and motivate us to do great things. And our emotions will respond to that as feeling great, the good feelings, joy, happiness, inspiration, motivation, all that stuff. And now our emotions are the fuel that drive us forward in life. Right? So the emotions are basically a reaction to our thoughts, which is a reaction to what's happening around us based on our belief system. Now, these emotions will drive you to action or inactions, and those actions will produce results that will reinforce your belief system. So if you want to change anything in your life, you got to change your belief system. Now, emotions are really just here to show us. They're like indicators. You could say, like, red, amber, and green. So when we have positive emotions, we feel good, right? That's for us because it resonates with us. Now, if you have like an amber light pop up, and this could be something as simple as, you get a job offer and you're just not really sure about it. You kind of, and your mind might be telling, well, I really need the paycheck. But something in your gut is telling you, oh, I don't know. I don't feel good about it. I don't know. This is
Something's
not for
not
me.
sitting right. Yeah, something's
That's your
not
soul
sitting
whispering to
right.
you.
Yeah.
Now, there's also things where it's just a big old red light, right? And that is your emotion, your soul, your higher knowing signaling to you that is definitely not for you. It's actually dangerous for you. Now, we have all kinds of situations where if we really listen to these whispers and we go back in our life, we can actually trace, yeah, actually, I didn't feel so good about that. And yeah, I wasn't, I met that person and I started dating him, but I really just never really had a good feeling about it. And then later it turns out, they are abusive, they're emotionally abusive, verbally, whatever. And then you have this hardship, this breakup, and your heart is broken, and you're like, man, but I kind of always knew. When I met him, I didn't really feel right, but I was so lonely and I thought like this is the best I can get. So I just, whatever, right? And we go against actually that GPS inside of us. And so your emotions, your range of emotions is really your GPS. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's guiding us all the time.
How do we keep it clean though? Um
Clean in what way?
we're in touch.
Yeah.
How do we keep it that
So here's
clean
the
and
thing.
in
Your body
touch?
will never lie. Like your mind will lie all the time. It will tell you all kinds of
Right.
stories. But your
Right.
body will actually never lie. And so, if you have a knot in your stomach about anything in life, then I would tell you, first of all, pause and just bring your awareness. What is this trying to tell me? Is it trying to tell you something? What am I not seeing? And you start asking these questions, and your awareness will guide you to that question. Like, why am I feeling a knot in my stomach when maybe I should be happy? I mean, my mind thinks I should be happy, but I feel this knot.
Yeah.
Now, if I look at my prior career, right, my mind was telling me to go forward, go get these trophies, make the money, this and that. But I had all kinds of stuff in my gut, man. It was strong. I knew I wasn't doing the right things. I knew deep down inside this wasn't kosher. This wasn't like, so I ignored the signals. And what happens when you ignore the signals? You get sick.
Hmm.
You get physically sick, you get mentally sick. It's called depression or, whatever. Emotionally, you feel like a wreck. And then, maybe you prop yourself up, you just push it away. So you start numbing yourself. You start drinking, gambling, binge watching, drugs,
I was going to say
weed,
cocaine. Yeah.
sex, porn, debauchery. You buy a second and a third house if you can afford it. You buy another dress you don't need. You buy jewelry you don't. I mean, you're just numbing
Hmm.
yourself. Because
Yes.
really, if you're honest with yourself, you're like, man, I just don't, this doesn't feel good. This is how people stay in marriages they shouldn't, stay in relationships, stay in jobs they shouldn't, because something inside of them, you're slowly killing yourself. Because actually, what all of that is telling you, there's a much grander, more beautiful life available to you. You're in the wrong timeline. So how long are you going to stay in this timeline? Now, why are you staying in the job and the marriage and all these things is usually fear. Oh,
Hmm.
what if I leave this person? Will I ever? And what if I have to divorce? And what I have to pay all this alimony? Or what if I lose my car, my dental benefits? Or what if I lose my paycheck and I can't
Right.
find another job? But really,
Fear is at the base of so many things.
in my
Yeah.
heart, I know really what I want to do is I want to start my own little, you know, I want to paint or I want to start a shop or I want to really be online and do a YouTube channel. But, I feel that's not available to me. And then, you're kind of slugging through life and all that emotion is just telling you, right, that you're on the wrong timeline. And I can promise you from personal experience that if you have an intrinsically motivated dream, a desire inside of you, no matter what it is, if it's intrinsically motivated, meaning it's not given to you by the world telling you what you should be or what you should do or what your parents told you you should be or what your husband or wife tells you what you should be or what your friends want you to be. No, what you truly want to express into the world. Now, that's a little seed. And I'll tell you actually something. That is not your dream or desire. God, creator, spirit, monad, Yahweh, infinite intelligence, universal mind, I don't care what you call it. It wants to live that through you. Now, what can we know from that? You are the entire universe in one little form, and that little authentically, intrinsically motivated dream, that things that always excite you, that you really want to do, but you're too scared to do. Well, by definition, I can tell you from experience that this universe is not cruel. So you will, if you have that dream or desire and it's intrinsically motivated, you will have all the gifts, talents, superpowers, and resources accessible to you to make that seed sprout. And when it sprouts, it will grow and flower and blossom. And then when it continues, it will bear fruit that you get to harvest as an experience that you bring into creation. And something wants to live that through you. That's why that's in your heart. Now, this is the thing, though. You do need to go on this journey of gaining mastery in whatever it is. You have to persevere it. You have to show some grit. You have to show maybe some discipline. You have to do some sacrifices in that some of the things in your life might have to be sacrificed for a little bit. Maybe you can't get a new car. Maybe you have to drive your car another 2 years. Maybe that big house has to wait a few years. Whatever it is, right? Maybe you have to go to night school. Maybe you have to get a certification. Maybe you have to, whatever it is. Maybe you have to heal your heart so it can open up for new love you want to bring in. Yeah, these things that we have to do in the human material world, we have to gain mastery. You're not going to get it by sitting on the couch, meditating 6 hours a day and visualizing it. That isn't going to move the big wheels of the universe. You need to move your little wheels. Now, when you move those little wheels that are under your control, the things you can actually do day to day, the universe is going to move the big wheels. And now what happens? Suddenly, the people you really need to meet, the lucky breaks, the coincidences, the serendipities, all this shit that you couldn't possibly fathom how it works, it all starts showing up.
Mhm.
And what And what triggered that? You started moving in this direction by really committing, I am going to create my most beautiful life. And I believe I'm here to experience that. Because I'm actually just not me. I am the whole goddamn universe wanting to live through me, wanting to have this experience. And my job is to actually guide myself there and to take the steps that I need to take and to take the courses, certifications, qualifications, go out and network with people. I have to put myself out there, whatever it is your dream is or what that is. It could be just like, I want to find the love of my life. Well, if you want to find the love of your life, guess what? Start by healing your heart, right? Forgive all your prior lovers or husbands or wives that left you or harmed you, and say, okay, I'm going to clean all that up. So I'm open that I can receive. And guess what? I need to go out there. I need to go meet people. I need to go mingle. And I'm not going to have an expectation if it comes in tomorrow or next week, whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. All I need to do is start showing up. And guess what? I have this dream person I want to call in, right? I have this person in my mind. That will be like, that will make me so happy. Well, ask yourself, what would that person be attracted to? What do I need to become in terms of how do I need to involve myself? While I'm waiting for that person to walk into my movie, I'm going to work on myself so I am a vibrational match for that person, that higher caliber person that I see for myself. And this beautiful relationship I want to create, totally different from everything I've experienced in my life so far. So now I need to
let me
now,
play devil's advocate here a second. What
do it.
happens if your passion doesn't match your talent? I mean, I know someone
That's,
whose
I can
their
promise you,
passion
that's no.
is
I will.
singing. I mean, they just, I think they've had many past lives as singers. Now they can't carry a tune. They have a terrible voice,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Well,
So
listen,
when
we
the
have this.
passion doesn't match
All
the
right,
talent.
well, two things, right? First of all, not everything needs to be your job.
Hmm.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that are amateur athletes. They're never going to win Wimbledon or the U.S. Open or
Right. Right.
whatever. But you can still enjoy playing tennis. You
But
don't need to be
will
Roger.
the universe support it? You know, in the
Well,
same way.
it but it's what you attach to it. I mean, I know
Hmm.
lots of people because I used to be a professional tennis player. I know lots of people that I coach, and they were never going to really go anywhere, but they love playing tennis. They go out on Sunday with their buddies, they
Right.
hang out, they play tennis. It's amateur tennis. It's not Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic playing tennis, but they're enjoying
Hmm.
it. What's wrong with
Right.
enjoying it?
Right.
Now, for them to have an aspiration because I liked playing tennis on Sunday, now I want to be paid millions at Wimbledon. Yeah. Well, now you're but if it's a passion, it's just something you enjoy doing, you can go sing
Right.
in your own home.
Right.
Why do you need to
Hmm.
be on the stage with people that pay it for it?
Right.
That might not be, but that is of the ego. Because the ego wants to be on stage and the
Mm.
spotlights and make millions and be famous. That's not your passion for something, because if you really truly have a passion for anything, you'll do it for free. You do it because you enjoy it, not because someone pays you for it or someone applauds you for it. That's not a true passion.
Mm.
That's all ego. Ego wants to be famous and rich
And
and
how do
be
you
rewarded.
separate that out? The ego and the real
Well, if your
your real
friend loves to,
path. If your
if
real
your
path.
friend loves to sing, right? What?
Yeah.
Nothing stops her from at home
Nothing.
singing her heart out.
Nothing.
Buy
Yeah.
buy a little what do you call it, karaoke machine,
Karaoke.
right?
Yeah.
So you have your own microphone and go have fun with yourself. Now,
Hmm.
if it's really truly your passion, you would not care if you were doing that by yourself or you filled MetLife Stadium with 80,000 people. You would not, if it was a true passion.
Hmm.
Now, if your ideology of your ego is, I want to be the next Madonna or Taylor Swift, I want to fill stadiums and be a celebrity and I will be important, and Well,
Right.
that's not a passion. That's
That's
just the
ego.
ego saying, I want to be
I
seen,
want the
heard, and loved.
validation. Yeah. 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 What about creativity? Where does that come into it?
Yeah, it's actually an aspect of, because there's two principal energies that I describe in my book. It's masculine and feminine energies. They are only complete when they're actually unified, which is what the yin yang symbol is all about, and other kind of symbology that we have in the world. So creativity is a part of feminine energy. Yeah,
Hmm.
the three cornerstones I describe masculine energy, right? Consciousness is awareness, intelligence, and energy. By the way, when I say masculine, I'm not saying male, I'm saying masculine energy. Every woman has
Right.
masculine energy in
Hmm.
her, right? Because we're all a mix of both of them.
Right.
Now, feminine energy has also three components, and it's being, creativity, and reference. Now, what does the feminine energy represent in this world? And in religious context, Christianity, it's actually the feminine is the Holy Spirit. It's that which creates. It is the feminine energy is the creatrix of life. And guess what? Women have children.
Hmm.
They're in the womb, they bear children. Now, everything of a feminine nature in the world creates. So when we're talking about creating anything, a business requires creativity. How else are you going to build a business and a product and like have an idea and a vision? When you
Right.
build a house, when you build a relationship, there's creativity. When you go cook yourself a meal, that's creativity. You're making something from ingredients into a pie or a lunch or whatever. That's creativity,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Everything we do express into the world is of a feminine nature in terms of its creativity, right? Because the feminine is that within this universe that creates. So you can almost say like the consciousness is the idea, the imagination, um, sort of the idea, and the feminine energy. A sperm cell comes in, right, and then it
Hmm.
fertilizes an egg, which is the feminine aspect, and it's that feminine aspect that takes the sperm cell in, right, and actually fertilizes it, and then blossoms it into a human being that then evolves on itself. Everything in nature operates this way. Everything in the universe operates this way. And so creativity is an aspect that we each have, and we're all creative all the time. When you drive your car and there's a traffic jam in the neighborhood, and you say, "Oh, I can take a right here and a left there, and then I'll get there too."
Hmm.
That was just your creativity at work, because you found a creative solution to an obstacle you encountered in life. So actually, in every aspect of your life, you're using your creativity all the time, even though you might think, "Oh, I'm not Picasso. I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to sing, so
Right.
I'm not creative." You are creative. You couldn't help but be creative. You couldn't help
Hmm.
because you're
It's
solving
not
problems all day
problem
long.
solving. That problem solving and creativity are basically the same thing.
Well, they're very much aligned because it's like all day long we're creating solutions for ourselves. We're
Hmm.
creating, we are faced with whatever we're faced in life. Like someone calls us, your mom calls you, and she has a plumbing problem. Well, it's your creative aspect in your mind that thinks, okay, maybe I can fix it. Well, I don't think I can fix it. I need a plumber. That was just creativity at work. You just found a
Hmm.
solution and another expression for something, right? So all of creation is creativity at work, and everything is all of creation. Everything in the world of form, the material world, is creativity expressed into form.
And how does that work in your book?
Well, it's five parts, and so I kind of lay a foundation. I literally call that the foundation. Then the
Hmm.
second part, I go very deep into this concept of masculine and feminine, and I
Feminine.
call that the
Yeah.
architecture. That's the basic architecture of this world, and I explain these dynamics that I just touched on very lightly. And then I have something that's called the gifts. That's number three, because when you project this on the tetrahedron, which is the Merkaba star, then you create a circle around it, and you have these other areas. And so the feminine actually has gifts for the masculine, and the masculine has gifts for the feminine. And these are all very common gifts. I mean, we're talking about wisdom, integrity, gratitude, joy, peace, and beauty. And I explain in this teaching framework how those come together. And, to give you an example, let's, so to give you an example. So I mentioned, right, in the feminine, you have being and you have creativity. Now, if you amalgamate those two, right, so being and joy or creativity creates joy. Because if I'm being in creativity, it creates joy in my life. Right? And so when I combine intelligence with awareness, I get wisdom. Wisdom is not the same as knowledge. I can know a lot and do really dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So intelligence and awareness creates wisdom. And so I combine all these and I show like what it actually creates. And then there's another layer around it. And these are actually the principles. And these are the principles of the universe. And so there's 6 of those. And the first principle is oneness. The second is compassion, growth, health, abundance, and harmony. And so I go very deep into what all these actually really mean and how we can express those into life. Now, when we start doing all of these things and all these different layers that I walk people through, you get to the 5th part of the book, and that is living a life of a spiritual poet. Now we're starting to seeing our life as, I'm just here to make art with my expression of life. How beautiful can I make my expression of life? And that includes everything. How beautiful can I make my relationships? How beautiful can I make my surroundings? How beautiful can I live in abundance? How beautiful in every aspect? Because we're not here necessarily, you don't need to be poor to be spiritual. That's a complete bullshit story. Yeah. You can create your most beautiful life as long as you're not causing any undue harm to anybody else or all of creation. You will have free license to create whatever life you want. Whatever life you desire, you can have. But the game is not to get as many marbles in the outer world. The game is to perfect your art, to make your expression into life just ever more refined, more beautiful, more loving, to be more in truth with yourself and the world. And this is what it is to say, hey, I'm going to dedicate myself to be a spiritual poet, and I'm going to express that in everything I do. I'm going to express it in my friendships. I'm going to express it how I talk to the cashier at the grocery market. I'm going to express it in my marriage or my significant other. I'm going to express it with my family. I'm going to express it in my work, whatever that might look like. I'm going to express this best part of me. I'm going to keep refining it and make it as beautiful as I can. And I'm going to express it in every aspect of my life. Now, one thing will happen. There are some people that are going to resonate out of your life. They can't deal with your luminescence because you are going to beam out.
A match of vibration, or?
Yeah, because they want to just be unhappy and grumpy and complain about everybody. And you're not going to be about that anymore. You're like, I'm here to create my most beautiful life. And if you want to do that with me, I'd love for you to be my friend or my partner or whatever. But if you're just going to bring your negativity into my little bubble that I'm creating for my life and where I want to go, then it's just not going to resonate anymore.
So people fall out. People fall out of your life, kind of thing.
Yeah, and guess what happens? There's an intelligence to life to that too. Because those people that no longer resonate, we can also let them go with love and say, hey, we walked a part of our lives together, and then now, I still send you love, but you go do your thing. I'll go do my thing. And that makes room for people to come in that actually resonate with where you are now. And these are people that are going to have similar interests. They're going to inspire you. They're going to motivate you. They're going to help you because they are not in competition with you. They're not, they want to, help you because they're at that same resonance.
They're more of a match.
Yeah. And we tend to kind of, desperately hang on to people that maybe we should create a little distance with. Like I had this one client, and she was really in a beautiful place in her life, and her mother was a very bitter woman, and
Yeah.
actually kind of jealous of her daughter. And this client told me, she said, like, I'm in such a beautiful place, and but when I go visit my mom, I mean, I'm like off for 3 days.
Mm.
I'm just like upset. I'm just like, I mean, she just piles on and she talks to, she layers so much into me. And I'm like, I shouldn't feel guilty for having a beautiful life. I created it myself. I came from really far. And, and she just, for some reason, it's like she just doesn't want me to have it. And I told
Hmm.
her, I said, I know it's your mother, but you're not 15 anymore. And you can, even with your mother, decide, like, I'm going to send her love. I'm going to be kind, but I'm not necessarily going to look you up and allow you to torpedo my life. And then for 3 days, I got to dig myself out of a hole to get my vibe back up. I said,
Yeah.
you're not responsible for that. You can take your distance and send her love, wish her well. If she calls you, you answer the phone. You're always polite. You're always loving. Still send her flowers for her birthday. But if it's detrimental to you and your journey to go to this obligatory visit every 2 weeks, and then it just knocks you off kilter, you don't have
Hmm.
to do that. Because your mom's bitterness is her responsibility, not yours. You don't need to fix your mom. That's her life. And maybe there's all sorts of things that happen to her that, would explain her bitterness, but it's still her responsibility because she has a choice in that. If she could see she'd have a choice, because we have a choice what we think. We have a choice what we feel. We have a choice what we make of our life. We've gone way over your original
Yeah,
time limit.
you know what though? Your book, you said your book was channeled and you wanted to bring it out to help humanity awaken to its full potential.
Yeah.
Who did you channel, or was it a who?
Well, it was a cluster consciousness, and if for the spiritual curious, you can look at the acknowledgements, you can decipher it, and this is why I don't really lead with that, because I
Hmm.
have a very when you do that, I don't want anybody to feel or think that I'm special, that I have anything that someone else doesn't have, that I'm some kind of spiritual pay grade that you are not. Because there's nothing that I can do that you couldn't do because you have the same hardwiring I do. And if you were able and you had walked that path like I did, you would be able to open your channel and communicate with that same cluster of consciousness I did, which is a cluster of intelligence. So it's not that relevant for the story, and I don't want to make it about that because my book is about empowering you, not to put me on a pedestal. Like, look how great I am. I channeled, I'm so important, I'm more important than you because they picked me. No, this isn't about Robert. I was the goddamn typist. Now, I was given this book through me to also be the ambassador, to represent this book. And that's a great honor. And that's the way I see it because I'm passionate about it. I love talking about this stuff. Hopefully you can tell. But this isn't about Robert being special. Idolize the teachings, not the teacher. And so
Hmm.
that's why I don't really go to what I channeled and all that stuff, because it kind of creates this guru-like storyline, like, he's something really special because he channels something and all that. No, you can channel too. Your channel's open, you can do the same thing I did. There's nothing I've done in my life that you can't do. Nothing. There's nothing special about me.
How do you know you're channeling a pure spirit? When I say pure, I
Hmm.
mean somebody
Well,
or a
well,
spirit
when
of
you
good
when you
intention, I guess.
yeah, well, that's a really deep subject, but listen, everything is energy. And so
Hmm.
when you get a little bit more advanced, so to speak, in levels of consciousness, you're starting to be really sensitive. And so I immediately know, I feel it when it's off. I feel when it's, and I haven't really had that exposure to any, uh, you know, anything I channel that wouldn't be savory. I'm a certified medium too, so I'm trained in this, right? Because I had this talent that opened up, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I actually went to a university and actually got a certification in it because I wanted to understand it. And like, what is it really that's coming through me? How does this work? And, turns out this has been happening since the beginning of humanity. I mean, there's seers and channelers and way showers that go hundreds of thousands of years back, right? And all indigenous cultures, either through plant medicine or they had shaman or medicine men, they all tapped into this, unmanifested consciousness, right? And there's intelligence there. And so, when I experience it, and everybody channels a little bit different too, because for instance, Paul Selig was a fantastic channeler, but he goes into trance. He goes offline. That's one form of channeling. I actually don't go offline at all, but I do go into what's called gamma brainwaves, which are the highest, most coherent brainwaves. And it's literally, it comes in, the best way I can describe it, it comes in as energy. And somehow my brain, my mind, my whatever translates that into words. Now, the moment I start thinking, it interrupts. So the moment I start thinking,
the
I know
moment
better.
you come into it, huh?
Yeah. The moment I like, no, I want to write this or I want to add this paragraph, whatever, the channel closes. Right. And so,
how do you open it? Just going into that space kind of thing?
Yeah. And I have to just look at my calendar real quick. I do have something coming up in about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
so,
no, we do have to jump off.
as a certified medium, I mean, one of the things they train you in is like, okay, how do you open up this channel? How do you keep it clean? How do you know, the vibratory accord? Now, here's the thing that you should imagine. I talked about tuning forks, right?
Right.
I told you the tuning forks. And so tuning forks have certain frequencies, right? So if I have two different tuning forks and I activate one, it will not excite the other one because they're not of the same resonance.
Okay, yeah.
And so, right? So imagine that. So as I rose in consciousness, right, my tuning fork became sensitive to a tuning fork in the universe that can now talk to me and pass that intelligence through me. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to receive it because my thread of consciousness, my tuning fork was not in tune with that higher level of knowing. So as I ascended in this higher level of knowing inside of me, I now became an open channel to actually tap into it on a much faster level. And the universe, this cluster of consciousness in the universe, could start using me as an instrument. Because my tuning fork was now in sympathetic resonance, where before it wasn't. And so this is what I'm explaining. Anybody that brings their tuning fork inside of them in energetic accord with that same thing I channeled, they can do the same thing. That's why I'm saying I'm not special. Because everybody's tuning fork can get to where my tuning fork is. And once they do, they will have access to the same thing I had access to, or that wanted to come through. This is why I'm saying I'm not special. Because everybody has that hardwiring. Now, the journey you have to go on is what I call know thyself, the grand odyssey, mastery of life itself. Now, if I've done anything that might be slightly off, more unique, is that I have devoted years and years and years to really, really, really go deep inside myself. And so I've really, really cleaned my instrument.
Right. So you have trained to do this, to be able to raise your vibration for the meat.
I purified myself. I went through, and because I had lived in extreme darkness, and I had to purify that darkness inside of me. Now, the way consciousness works, how your level of ascension is directly correlated to the level of descension you're able to integrate. Because we have all have darkness inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so the higher you want to go, the deeper you must go. Now, going deep is not the fun part of awakening. This is seeing all the darkness inside of you and purifying it and owning it. And passing and say, well, I don't have it. I'm a great guy. No,
I'm a nice
really
person. Yeah. Yeah.
really going into your own darkness,
Mm-hmm.
which is also the darkness of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you live Putin's life from birth to where he is now, you might very well have that same darkness inside of you that Putin is expressing into the world right now, or Kim Jong-un, or Maduro, or Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to think, well, I would never do that. But you didn't walk a mile in their shoes.
Right.
And I promise you, if you're a human being, at some level, there's a level of darkness inside of you as well that you must face if you truly want to step into love. Because true love, I call this universal love, is actually gaining the ability to love everything and everything, including Putin,
Mm-hmm.
no matter the atrocities he commits. Because you see beyond the persona Putin that's doing that, and you see that soul, that divinity in him as well. And you say, I am going to see beyond that and love it. Now, this is what Jesus was talking. This is what Buddha were talking about.
All right.
If you really want to go
the
into,
high vibration.
Yeah, but I devote at some point. I had a shift in my life, and I devoted myself to walk that path. Now I'm nowhere near where Jesus was. I got a lot to learn, but I did have a level of devotion that might be a little out of the norm for most people. But that's just how I'm wired. Because the same thing that reached that high level of success in the material world, that same thing is expressing itself now on the spiritual path. And so I'm a really highly driven, internally motivated person, or I couldn't have done the things I did in the material world. And so I'm carrying that same energy into the spiritual world. So, but again, this is not a competition. You don't need to do what I do. I mean, you live your life, I live my life. We all should do our own lane, because guess what? I'm just one puzzle piece in the whole mosaic of humanity, and so are you. And all of us are unique. And we're all infinitely meaningful. We're all infinitely valuable. No one puzzle piece is more valuable than the others, because guess what? The whole mosaic of humanity, this whole puzzle is only complete when everybody is in the puzzle. There is no hierarchy in spirituality. And the moment anybody suggests that there's any hierarchy, that anybody is more important, more valuable, more anything than anybody else, you are no longer in the world of spirituality.
Yeah. The red flag went down.
Jesus would tell you that he's no more important than anybody else. Why do you think he washed feet? What was he symbolizing? Like, we have to look at these things and say, what was he trying to tell us?
Yeah.
What he was trying to tell us is that I'll wash the beggar's feet. I will love the prostitutes too. I will forgive them. I will not condemn them. I will not judge them. I will love them. Now, that's a really, really high bar. But I have kind of come to this realization that that's where I want to go. I think that's where we're all going to go. That's the part. That's the game we're playing here. How much can we purify ourselves? How beautiful can we make our expression? And of course, life is still going to throw you lemons.
Spiritual poet.
Yeah, we're all spiritual. Yeah. And I definitely, if I have done anything, I have committed to be to express my greatest spiritual poetry into all creation. And mind you, my spiritual poetry is not perfect. I am a flawed human being. I make mistakes. I make missteps. but I get better and better at self-correcting myself.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is perfect. Nobody has no flaws. And everyone is sacred. Every single person is sacred, divine.
And that's the note I'm going to stop us on because it's perfect note. I want to congratulate you for your book coming out on Tuesday, and I'll try and have you on the radio on Friday so that that will support the book as well.
Oh, I'd love that. That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Was this
Okay,
good for
that'd be
you?
great.
Was this helpful?
Oh,
Was
I
this...
loved it. I loved it. Actually, I almost asked about 2 minutes ago another question that would have been another hour. And I thought, we can't do it. We can't go there.
Yeah, no, I do. I
We
have a lot
both
of...
have obligations. Yeah.
I know,
But
but Barb, listen,
it was,
I really enjoyed it, and I know I
I did
talk a lot,
too.
but you ask questions, and I'll talk. I mean, like I'll
Right,
talk about this all
right.
day long.
And
because
that's where I had to stop myself. I almost
yeah,
went into the karma question and thought, oh, we can't do it. We
yeah.
can't go there. I might call you back and say, okay, let's do the
Hey,
karma
let's do it,
question. But yeah.
Barb. You have my email. If you
Mhm.
whenever you want to do another show, we'll do another one.
That'd be great. Thanks. Yeah, because there is so
Reach
much
out to
more
me.
here. Yeah.
Reach out
Okay,
to
that'd
me,
be
and
great.
we'll do it. We'll do another one. Yeah.
Okay,
Listen,
sounds good.
I'm really like this book. I hope you can see. I mean, I'm passionate about this stuff, right?
Right.
Because I have come from a really fucking dark place,
Mhm.
and I see what's possible because I've done it, right? And so I just have this thing that comes through me that like and I'm a, you can't see me standing, I'm a 6'5" guy. I'm a big fucking alpha guy. And you know why I got this body? You know why I got this voice? Because if I was a measly little guy hunched over that talks about love and truth, nobody would take it serious.
Right.
And because I have a Columbia MBA and I've got all my spurs in the real world, right? I can talk about this like nobody else can.
Yeah.
Because I can talk to the big honcho CEO and I can sit in the boardroom and spar with him. I can talk about balance sheets. But can you talk about this, Mr. CEO?
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm just an instrument, just like you're an instrument. Because what are you doing? You're bringing people on your show. You're sharing information. You're sharing truth. You think you're not an instrument of something that's much larger?
You know what I call it? I'm on the train. I'm not driving.
Exactly.
I'm on the train.
And once we see that, and once we have that realization, now we can play with it and we say, hey, okay, what's for me and what's not for me? Because maybe in my case, I wasn't supposed to stay on this Titan in business train. That was just a learning experience so I can now show the other side of it.
Right.
But I had to have that experience.
To support this, yeah.
And I had to go into the darkness and I had to lose myself in it so I know what it is.
And go into the humanness of it, that side of it. We've got to go. I was going to say, because between the two of us, we could go on for the rest of the day.
I know. Right. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, and good luck. We'll talk again.
Yeah, we will. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.